What's up, gang? Today we're going to be doing an oil change on a 2012 Toyota Sequoia. Alright, what we see in front of us is everything that you will need in order to be able to change the oil on your Sequoia or Tundra. We have the 0W20 fully synthetic oil, pair of gloves. We're going to have a wrench with a 14mm socket as well as a 12mm socket. The 14mm is for removing the drain plug, and a 12mm is to drop the skid plate off the bottom of the car. We have an upgraded oil filter housing. The stock one is plastic. We're going to be replacing it with this aluminum one, and I covered this little guy in a separate video, which I can send the link to at the bottom in the description. You're going to need the removal tool to get the original stock plastic oil filter housing off. So we'll use this. You're going to need the filter. I just use these Fram filters. They're doing a pretty decent job. Some brake clean if you make a little bit of a mess, and we're planning on making a little bit of a mess. You're going to need a funnel and some sort of a container to capture the oil that you're going to be draining out of the car. First things first, what you want to do is open up the oil filter cap and then remove the drain plug from the bottom of the vehicle and let the oil drain out. Alright, the oil drain plug is located directly underneath the passenger, pretty much. So it takes a 14mm socket to take it off. I should mention that you should probably start the car up a little bit to let the oil warm up so it drains properly. And yeah, that's about it. And I should mention that I do not raise the car up to do this. I just simply slide underneath the car and get it done that way. There's plenty of clearance. Okay, once you loosen it up, just stick it out by hand and just make sure that you don't drop it into the pan. So once it's ready to go, just get your hand out of the way. And I'm usually lazy at this point. I should be wearing gloves, but I get a better feel this way. Okay, it's almost ready to go, and let's go ahead and yank it out. Got a little bit messy. That's alright. Alright, oil is draining. I'm going to go ahead and leave the plug here and begin removing the skid plate. So on our black Sequoia, and this is the one that we're changing the oil on, we have two skid plates. One is the stock one that's underneath this optional one that you can purchase from the manufacturer. So I'll have to remove this one first. That will expose and allow me to get to the one that we actually need to lower in order to get to the oil filter housing. Alright guys, we got the skid plate off. I should mention that if you have this optional skid plate cover that I got, it also uses these 10mm bolts on the sides here, so you will need to remove those as well. But when the bolts are out, I always recommend spraying these down with some WD-40 or something very similar. That way by the time you're ready to put the stuff back on, you'll have somewhat corrosion-free bolts, because as you can see, they get rusted up a little bit. Just gonna spray these down, let it sit in WD-40, brush them off with the wire brush, and spray some anti-corrosion spray on it, and it'll be ready to put back on when we're ready to go. So next up is to remove this skid plate. I believe there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts. 3 in the back, 2 in the front. So I pretty much just loosen the front ones just a tad bit. All you need is a little bit of leeway for the skid plate to drop just a little bit. But the back ones I remove altogether. Alright, with the skid plate down in the back, you see how much leeway we got more now. We can now get access to the oil filter, which is located, if this is the center of the car, it's located pretty much right in the middle, maybe just a slightly bit towards the driver's side seat. We're going to go ahead and get to the oil filter housing from the driver's side wheel well. I'll put a light on it so you can see where it's at. But it is located right there. You can see the black plastic oil filter housing with the wrench adapter in the bottom. So we're going to use our tool to unscrew that oil filter housing. Putting it down is going to spray a little bit of oil. I'm not too concerned about it. By the way, that little silver cap that's on the bottom of the oil filter housing, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to unscrew that, and then you use this little tool to drain off any excess oil before you take the housing off. What a pain in the ass that is, and I don't use it. So, and I'll show you how I'm going to completely bypass that whole setup so we don't have to deal with that anymore in the future using the aluminum housing. Alright, so what you're supposed to do is use this adapter to get it onto the oil filter housing. Alright, so what you're supposed to do is get this adapter onto the oil filter housing and then unscrew it in a counterclockwise manner. I always find this to be a big pain in the ass. So again, I'll give you a million reasons why you should replace it with the aluminum housing, which I'm going to do next. So let me go ahead and get this thing unscrewed, drain the oil, and put the new housing on. So I ended up removing the entire skid plate off just because I could not get enough leverage to get this stupid plastic housing off. It was under so tight that the adapter would just kind of slide off. So had to get a little bit more leverage. Took the plate off. Now I'm working at getting this thing removed. It's almost out. I'm gonna go ahead and get the oil pan underneath of here because it's gonna spray out just a little bit. But the next step will be to get this stupid thing off, throw it out, and I'll show you how to set up the new oil filter housing so you don't have to deal with this kind of crap in the future. Alright, so on the left here we have the new oil filter housing that we're going to be putting on, and this is the original one here on the right. To do that, the new oil filter comes with these O-rings. We're going to go ahead and put these onto the oil filter. And one thing we got to do is swap out the plug that's on the bottom of the original housing onto this one here. So I'm going to put the camera down. And let's see how this works. So what we want to do is remove this guy here and then put it on the bottom of the new housing here. Alright, this is the new drain, the oil filter housing drain plug. The O-ring goes in the bottom here, and what is going to happen, we're going to screw this in as tight as we can on the bottom of this housing. Get a little bit of oil on it so it does not become a pain in the butt to screw it up, to screw it on. And maybe it's a good idea to kind of work the O-ring into the filter housing. Okay, got it in there. Now go ahead and close it up and tighten it up as hard as you can. So the idea here is that once you transfer over the oil filter housing drain plug, we're going to tighten it as much as you can because we're no longer going to be removing it. I find that there is absolutely no benefit of using this guy. I don't mind making a little bit of mess with the oil. That's fine, I can clean that up. But it saves me no time draining the oil out than removing the housing. So I much rather just put the wrench right on this piece here and remove the whole housing together. Drop it, it'll spill a little bit of oil, put a new filter on, put it back on, and you're good to go. Saves you a lot of time. It's a lot easier than dealing with the stupid plastic housings that are a big pain in the butt. So that's the whole concept that we're going after here. Alright, it may also be a good idea to replace this distributor, the one that comes with, the new housing comes with, the short one, for your stock one, because it's longer, it has a better distribution of oil throughout the length of the filter. So it's really easy to do. Just simply kind of pull on this on the side like that and pop it out of the little tabs that it has on the bottom there, and then swap it out. Fairly easy to do, self-explanatory. But yeah, you want to do that because this original housing is for a smaller car. Same size, same threads and everything else, but the filters on those cars are shorter. So, you know, you want to accommodate proper distribution of oil. So put this one on, and then you can discard of this guy. Here's your new filter that we're going to be using. So plop that on, just like that. And you're pretty much ready to go. You just got to put on this new O-ring, slide it on over the housing, and bring it down into its groove, just like that. Magic. What's there? You know, just make sure it's a little oiled up. That will help you get this thing on easier. Wipe the oil filter housing down, and you're ready to rock. Let's put this thing back on and start buttoning everything up. Alright guys, and this is the moment that we've all been waiting for. Let's go ahead and put this new housing on. Screw it in by hand. Again, you can do this without dropping the entire skid plate off. We just did it because we're having trouble with the stock one. Once it gets a little tight, like right now, it's hadn't tightened, you're ready to just kind of lightly tighten it back up. You don't need to put too much force into it. All right. Once you have it tightened up, what you want to do is you want to give it just a little bit more of a crank, just to tighten the drain plug down as much as you can in the housing. So what will happen is that the next time you come back to this thing and you want to change your oil, all you gotta do is plug this thing in and then turn this thing all together, right? Okay, you can see that the whole housing will now unscrew instead of having to just use the drain plug for that. So let's go ahead and tighten this back up. Again, let it come to a stop, and that's it. You're all set. At this point, it's just everything goes in reverse. put the skid plate back on, you know, put the drain plug back in and fill it up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that next. So at this point we got everything buttoned up, and I'm going to go ahead and fill it up with oil. This thing takes, I believe, 7.5 quarts, so I'm going to give it the first 5. Start it up, I'll let the oil circulate, and then add as needed. So let's go ahead and do that. If you like this video and thought it was helpful, hit a like and subscribe down below. Bye everyone.